I'm not deployed. So we got together early last quarter, so this is kind of late in this quarter, just to be able to engage, the local information space here and answer any questions that you have, because we do have quite a few things going on Fort Drum, and I'm sure there's, like I said, I think there's probably some things that you're going to want to know from me. But I'll start off by talking about the upcoming mission and the missions that we have, the deployments that are going on. To start off with the deployments that we do today compared to the last 10 or 12 years, they're not really the same. They started morphing a little bit last set of deployments, but really, in the training and advise, it doesn't take the entire units out of the footprint here. And I call it the, sort of the 70-30 model that we use, which means if you take a brigade combat team or even our division headquarters, you end up deploying about 70% of the leadership. And that is usually the command select leadership that have been picked by the Army to command battalions, brigades, and their staffs. And they'll pull them out and they'll deploy them, because the reason we have to do that is we support a mission downrange, and we have to have equal leadership of who we're training and advising. And a lot of times that's, as you know, it's the senior leadership right now. So you almost have to have a one-on-one, a general on a general, a colonel on a colonel, so it requires the highest level of leadership to deploy. And that doesn't mean all the soldiers stay at home, but the preponderance of the soldiers stay at home. About 70% of them, in most cases, stay at home. But the leadership will also take security detachments and route clearance and things like that with them. So there's some enabling soldiers that go with them. But like I said, I call it the 70-30. And it's a little bit of a mismatch, because most of your leadership's downrange, most of the troops are here. So that requires us to put a very rigorous look at we call it our task organization, or our leader to lead, the leaders that will lead back here over the lead, the soldiers that are back here. So we hand pick them very carefully. And we even consolidate the formations so they're coherent and can train, and they have the right leaders over the top of them. So we don't have a lieutenant working as a major, for example, or a major working as a full colonel. So we always say, hey, one level up is okay. But really the takeaway here is just to kind of talk about how we're deploying these days. A lot of the leadership downrange and a lot of the soldiers at home. And that we carefully select who we put in charge of the soldiers back here. Okay, having said that now, I'll just run through the brigades. Our 1st Brigade, they're in Iraq, and they took same type of formation I told you, just very heavy on leaders, because they're training and advising and assisting the high-level leadership in Iraq in several locations. So they're, like I said, they're sprinkled all over the country, and there's even some in Kuwait that are there. But their mission is totally to train and advise the Afghan or the Iraqi leaders that they're building partner capacity is what we call it. And we're doing the same thing in Afghanistan, and that's where my 2nd Brigade is located, in Afghanistan, and they're in the south in Kandahar. Same type of mission. They're on top of a Corps headquarters and training and advising them. And then my 3rd Brigade is in the east of Afghanistan, along the boundary with Pakistan, and that's the sector that we've been to several times. And like I said, they're on top of another Afghan Corps doing the same mission. My CAB, or Combat Aviation Brigade, we went from 13 to 10 cabs in the Army. And so we do this, regionally allocated forces is what they're doing. So they're split. They're going, we have one battalion. You probably saw the 30 Kiowas fly over Fort Drum in July, and they were divesting or heading to the location, because we're not using them anymore. We're going to have Apaches come on board. So they flew out of here in July. Now that battalion has deployed to Korea. And they're going to be, they're on the same type of aircraft in Korea, but they're going to be there for 9 months supporting that mission in Korea. As you remember, we, due to the restructuring, we pulled all the forces out of Korea, and we're replacing them with forces from CONUS on a rotating basis. So that's where they're located now, is in Korea, 6-6 CAV. They'll come home in July and fall in on Apaches. We'll talk about ARI later, or the Aviation Restructuring Initiative of the Army because it impacts Fort Drum. But the plan is for them to come back in July and fall in on a second set of Apaches, of 24 Apaches. You know, so we flew out 30 Kiowas, and they'll get replaced with 24 Apaches when they come home from Korea on this rotation. Then they have another battalion out of the Combat Aviation Brigade that's gearing up to go to Iraq as well, and they'll work up in that sector, and they leave here in February, March timeframe. In spring is when they take off to go over, and so that completes the maneuver brigades. Now the sustainment brigade that sustains us, they have parts and pieces of specialized skills that are deploying into Africa. We call it the Africa, you know, and they'll do that all the way up to the end of next year. But it's not large, it's just specialties. And they're doing the same thing. They're building partner capacity for the General Rodriguez, the AFRICOM commander. So that's kind of the, you know, what's going on with all of the units here. I don't think I missed any, did I, Julie? I think that's all the major units. We do have itty-bitty, you know, onesies and twosies that flow out and support all over the globe. We got a few in Kosovo and things like that, but they're very minor. Now for the division headquarters, you know, last rotation we were at Bagram Air Base, just like we're heading to this time, but we took almost the entire headquarters with us. This time we're only taking, you know, a little over 200. So we'll leave the preponderance of the division headquarters back, but it requires me and my primary staff to go. And we've already hand-selected our staff to stand back here. But our mission is a little different this time. We're not going to be in an operational role where we're going to be, you know, controlling any type of, you know, combat operations with intelligence, surveillance, aircraft that are flying over, or anything like that. We're not allocating any troops. Our job there is we call it Title 10, which is U.S. Code Title 10, which means we control all the monies, the base closures, all the flow of forces in and out of Afghanistan, all of the kit that we have there that we're sending home. You know, that's our mission, is to push it out. And we also do all of the planning for General Campbell, that, like you saw today's announcement of the troops remaining at a certain posture. But all that planning is done by, that's going to be our mission when I get there, is the planning effort. So a little bit different than the last time. And so that's kind of what's going on with the deployments. But the other thing I'll just talk a little bit about that's changed since the last update. You know, the Army, you know, when it comes to readiness and force structure and all that, under training, the Army, they call it the Combined Arms Training Strategy. You know, we've been doing counterinsurgency for the last 12 to 14 years. Well, the Army is now, you know, they've kind of said, hey, we need to push the reset button and get back to high-end hybrid threat. And they refer to it as decisive action training, which means it's more of a high-end type of combat, not counterinsurgency, low-end. And it's really where you master your effects of your weapon systems for larger wars. So it's really growing back, building the readiness for decisive action, not counterinsurgency. So the whole Army is making this turn. And I tell you that because it's, you know, we've been working extra hard here when we build these rear formations to make sure we retain enough combat power soldiers in the right formations to be able to start growing and building that readiness. Because they have to start at the low level, the squad, work up to platoon, and now we have to actually do company level live fires here, both day and night, for every company battery troop on Fort Drum before they even go to the CTCs, you know, like at JRTC at Polk or at National Training Center in Fort Irwin. And is that a big change? Yeah, it is. It's a pretty big change. And, you know, we're having to build some more targets or objectives here on the base to be able to maneuver because they're going to measure it now. It's very objective measurement now. You have to do this to get to this level. You have to do this to get to this level. So in order to report your readiness, if you didn't get those gates accomplished, you can't report it. It's very objective, not subjective anymore. And they cut back the way, you know, extreme cutback on the number of tasks to do. For example, last time I saw you guys, a brigade combat team had 18 mission essential tasks that they had to perform. Now it's down to 5. You see what I mean? So now you can actually really get after them and burn it in and get the muscle memory because you're repeating them over and over. So it's really the essential things to focus on, and they're going to be done under live fire conditions. And so we're making that turn here at Drum, so you may hear a lot more live fires going on in the community here, especially out at Range 44 in the corner, and range 24 on this side. So we've been really building more objectives for us to train on. So it's going to be a lot more bullets flying is my point. It's shooting on the ranges and doing all those type of things that we did, years and years ago. But we, like I said, we're pulling off this counterinsurgency more toward it. And this is General Milley and our Army's #1 priority is building readiness. And it's more of a hybrid high-end readiness, not a counterinsurgency readiness. So that's the #1 priority for the Army. A little bit of, and then just repeat a couple things here. Nothing has really changed. I mean, what makes us so unique here at Drum, because you guys know about the force structure and all the looming sequestration and all that type of stuff. So we always have to, kind of review the bidding here. Hey, what makes us unique at Fort Drum and for the North Country? And everybody knows it's the interdependence. We're interdependent upon the communities. Communities are dependent upon us. I mean, we all know we're a $1.3 billion economic impact here to the North Country annually. I mean, we all know that. We also know we've got 35,000 soldiers and their dependents here. I mean, that's about 35,000 in this area that bring economic prosperity to the North Country. And so, and our interdependence on all the schools and the hospitals, I mean, it remains. And everybody's just enamored with that when they come here. The SecDef when he came, everybody they're just flabbergasted how interdependent we are with the community and intertwined with the community. All the health cost, it's just the health investments, the caseworkers and everything that's been poured in here for, to help the soldiers out. And then there's a lot that New York State and the federal government does for us here as well, the community. The school grants to help us where we don't have to pay taxes. The 781 highway, we got the I-26 project about to happen. The governor's already approved that budget on that. All the housing. I mean, we still got 60% of our married that live off base. So they made a lot of investments there. The buffer that we have here so we don't have encroachment. The aerial, they help us with our air routes. So, the windmills and all that, they help protect the air routes for our air training, the rail access, even the port of Augsburg. So the community does a lot for us as well. So it's a give and take here, but it's very interdependent. So that's kind of probably the #1 thing that makes Drum so unique. The other thing is we have, that no one else has, there's only one other division that has covered hangars for all their helicopters. We do it for weather reasons, but we had a 10,000-foot runway. We're considered the Northeast Power Projection Platform. It supports the Army operating concept, to fight in a complex world and win. You've got to be agile. You've got to be able to move at a moment's notice. It's very emergency deployment readiness exercise focused type of environment here. But we definitely have that power projection platform here with our airfield. And once we get the new I-26 overpass that connects the airfield with the main post, I mean, that'll be more helpful to the soldiers that work out there. We appreciate them doing that, but part of this Army operating concept, I mean, nothing's really changed. I mean, we deploy to places on short notice. As you see, the world is very unstable and it's got a growing instability factor to it. Trajectory, I would say, trajectory of instability seems to continue to amaze everyone, and you see it every day on the news. But it's all about assuring the allies that we work with and then deterring the aggressors. And then if called upon to fight, we have to fight because our strategy is we have to be able to defeat one adversary somewhere and deter another one in another location. It used to be two, but now it's one. You got to be able to defeat in one place and deny the capability of the enemy to succeed in another place is the way they sort of word it. So it all supports that strategy: assure, deter, defeat. And we are a good asset for the nation, being up here in the Northeast with this power projection capability. We talked about, cost efficiency. I mean, we're the only post in the Army right now that's completely self-reliant on energy. Started last week. I mean, you'll see our plant out here. So, given the interdependence on the community here, we don't have redundancies with cost of infrastructure. Double cost with schools, hospitals. So we're very cost effective in that sense to DOD, and that was one that Secretary Carter kind of honed in on when he was here. He said only other place he's seen it kind of like this was over in Germany, where we are interdependent. And then we have and we're modern. I mean, since 91 up through 19, we've spent $440 million on military, MILCON we call it, military construction. That's a chunk of money. But if you fly over the post, I flew over yesterday, was out at the ranges looking for these boxes, these live fire boxes, and the whole post almost looks new, you know? I mean, we're tearing down World War II wood. You know, we started off with over 1,000, and we're down, we got over 70% of it gone. So it's a very modern post as well. And we lack, and a lack of encroachment. We're not sitting anywhere where there's a lot of built-up areas all around us. So, I mean, I would almost say that, you know, we're able to expand if we needed to. I mean, you know, you guys know about the ground interbase site they're looking at. I mean, they're looking at a ground interbase site here, you know. There's four locations they're looking at, and they're honing in on drum. Apparently they like the angle or something, but the bottom line is, I mean, they're looking at it. So I think we even have room to expand if we needed to. And then, and I think what's another thing that's, you know, we've been told we're sort of leading the way on up here in the Northeast is just our ability to integrate with the total Army. You know, we have enduring partnerships with the National Guard, with the 12th Division there, with Harry Miller, and the Vermont. But now it's grown. We have 8 states now we're partnering with that we're reaching out to bring them in. We even signed a Northeast Regional Partnership. We call it a NERP, between the Vermont, New York, and Fort Drum, and now we're growing it and pull in the other 8 states that are around us. There's only one state that is sort of not in the Northeast, and we're asking them to relook that, and it's in Virginia, you know, because that's too far away. You know, virtual presence equals absence, so to speak, you know. But we do have that quality about us. We have you know, we're good for the total Army to integrate. And I'll tell you, when you hear General Milley, our new Chief of Staff, when he talks Army, he seldom uses active duty numbers anymore. He uses total Army numbers. And y'all probably caught up on that. 980 is our 450. You know, 920 is our 420, or you know, 920 is our 420 for the active force. So when you hear him talk, he talks total Army, which is the right thing to do because we are a total Army. We can't go anywhere by ourselves because they have plugs of enablers that go with us wherever we go. And so he kind of works that. But anyway, I just sort of wanted to get that kind of out up front. And you know, now I think I could probably take any questions that you have.
John, first of all, do you think you could move in just a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah. Okay.
And the obvious question is the President's announcement today about troop levels in Afghanistan. Did that surprise you? Do you approve? And what do you think the impact is here at 10?
Well, no, it didn't. It didn't surprise me. I think, you know, given where we're at in the campaign, you know, I was in Afghanistan when we sort of wrote this plan, and we sort of had it as a, you know, 3 steps down. But we knew, you always have to have a plan because the Army budget's 2 years out. And so, but you always have to assess the plan. And I know they've been assessing the plan. I'm not there, and I'm sort of pulled away from it right now, but I knew that there was constant assessments going on. Every fall they have an assessment. And the immediate impacts to Drum is we, you know, our 2 brigades that are there right now, as well as parts of the division headquarters, under the original plan, we would have got to send some of them home early, you know, as we drew down to the right numbers, because you have to collapse some of the bases. And when we were collapsing, we were going to pull them in. So now we're, I think, under this new plan, they'll stay for the duration of their deployments, you know, 9 months. But I mean, we have made lots of gains there. You know, this sort of assures, and we have a willing partner there now with Ghani. I mean, he's very willing. You know, President Karzai wasn't so willing, and you know, they still have capability gaps that this gives them a little more time to get their legs under them with their Air Force that they're growing. I mean, they still got helicopters that are coming in. I mean, the Air Force training in itself is going to, I mean, it was planned out originally all the way to 19, just to grow their Air Force. Their counterterrorist force is really picking up quite a bit, but they needed more touch. Their intel collection and capabilities. I mean, that gives time for them to, you know, get their own enablers under them and not rely on us so much. So I think it's just part of the normal assessment. And, you know, it's going to, like I said, it's going to keep all of our troops deployed for the duration of their, you know, commitment. Because it's 9 months for the brigades, and some would have come home early. For the division, it's a year. It's still a year for the division headquarters guys that go. So that's really the impacts to it.
Is there thought, though, of you know, when we talk about 5,500 in 2017, is there thoughts that drum will continue to be a part of those rotations?
Yeah, we've got probably more deployments there than any other unit in the Army. This is our 6th division deployment to Afghanistan. We only have one Iraq. The brigades as well. We got. I think. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what our you know what the Pentagon decides on force structure to the future. But 5,500. You know, it's really it's going to be a lot of CT, a lot of counter-terrorist type of guys and gals on the ground supporting it. But we still have a lot of commitments with the ministries there, the Minister of Interior, Minister of Defense. There'll be soldiers that are advising them, and we'll see where it goes from there. I don't have enough data to kind of read into it too much, but I think we'll always be a relevant force to go there.
One of the things that we had a chance to talk with Representative Spock, and I believe you did as well, and she mentioned, and I believe General Milley had also mentioned, you know, learning from what happened in Iraq to not allow this to happen to Afghanistan. Can you kind of talk about maybe a little bit about, you know, what you've understood about what's going on in Iraq now that we can put towards Afghanistan?
Well, I'll just tell you that there's always voids, you know, if you pull out too soon. You know, for example, in Afghanistan, I can talk about Afghanistan. You know, we were always concerned pulling out, you know, too soon would, you know, someone's going to fill the void. And there are vital national interests here. I mean, our country has, you know, a couple of vital national interests. The one I can speak about in this forum is the, you know, no longer a platform for terrorists to, you know, mount and organize to strike the homeland. I mean, that's why we went in there to start with. I mean, it starts with the towers. When you see it, we went in, we got Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan. And that's always been a vital national interest. Never let it be a place for terrorists to grow capability to strike the homeland again. So that's number one and foremost. And Secretary Carter just had a press conference, and he iterated that as well. So I think there was some concern that we pull out too quick. You know, there may be someone fill the void. There is some semblances of ISIS starting to try to recruit and gain a little foothold in Afghanistan, and so, you know, the Taliban's Kunduz, you know, they've sort of assembled en masse and went through the ANSF up there in Kunduz, but now the Kunduz is, I mean, they've cleared them out now. They've done that a lot to do in Helmand. They'll go into an area, and then they'll send, you know, they got 7 to 9, I think it's 7 commando battalions, and they'll put them on their helicopters and they'll fly them up, and they usually clear the area out pretty quick. It's just, this was the largest attack they've done, and it's sort of, I think, and I think that's, like I said, they cleared it out, but that sort of probably helped a little bit. And then Ambassador Cunningham's report that just came out, you know, probably hadn't, he was just on TV. He had released a report about, you know, us staying a little longer and not pulling out too quick. And he had Madeleine Albright, she had endorsed it, as well as a lot of Democrats, both sides of the aisle had endorsed it. You know, Senator Reid and McCain, everybody had sort of written this report up. But I think, you know, we've got, like I said, we've got a willing partner there now with Ghani. The Afghans are trying hard, and we'll see where it goes. It gives us a little more time to hold the gains that we've made, and I'm sure there's going to be a constant assessment. I mean, right now, what I took out of that was, you know, looks like they're going to let us control the 9,800 to 5,500 as long as we get to 5,500 by next December 31st. There'll be another assessment next fall that says, hey, where do we take it? Do we continue to go another year with the 5,500? You know, so they'll constantly do that, because we do have to plan. A lot of people say, well, do you think you gave away, you probably shouldn't have gave a timeline to start with? Not really, because you have to plan. Like I said, it's a 2-year budget, you got to plan. And so, you know, it's a constant thing we do in the military, we have to plan, because it involves a lot of moving parts. You know, you got to tell units ahead of time, they got to train, they got to organize, and they either come or they don't. I mean, and like I said, it just, you got to do deliberate planning. I call it get your headlights out. So the military is always pretty good at that.
Is there a concern, our continued presence, keeping the Afghan security forces on, I guess, training wheels? We're
Yeah.
setting them up for, we're just prolonging
Yeah.
them, following them, having struggles when we leave, when we eventually step away.
Yeah, that was one, that was a good question. 3 years ago, that's kind of what we were doing. Remember now, you got to realize we set up the first Afghan battalion, what was it, '01? And then now look at them. I mean, they've got 6 corps with 3 brigades, and every brigade's got 3. I mean, it's a big force now. 252,000, I believe, is what the size of the army is. 3 years ago, that was the talking point we were always getting at is, hey, they're so reliant on us. We're going to be their training wheels forever. But I can tell you right now, we're not even with them. I mean, we're on the Corps headquarters, and we're not even leaving our bases. I mean, we're at Kandahar, we're at Bagram, and really what we're doing now is we're doing the things, so we spent most of our effort just growing the Army and the police, and then, the last 3 to 4 years is when we said, hey, can these guys sustain themselves? Logistically, can they pay their troops? Can they give them food? Can they keep all their vehicles running and all that kind of stuff? So that's all we've been focused on is the end-to-end process of money flowing down to pay them, the food, the parts. So we've got people in the ministries and people down on the ground at the corps level where it all comes in at. We're not even on the brigades anymore, much less the battalions. Last time I was there with 10th Mountain, we were doing the surge. That's when we went over 100,000, and we were in the trenches with them. And we were almost pulling them by the nostrils because we outnumbered them. And then they grew, and they got beside us. That's when we went Shana Bashana. And then we gave them lead in 2014 in June. That's when they took the lead, and we stepped back. And we've just been thinning ever since then. I mean, even their soft guys, our guys don't even go on the targets anymore. They go with them on the ground. That's the only ones that leave the FOBs is our special ops folks. And they do all the work on the target. They just go on the ground with them because where they lack at right now, it goes back to what I said earlier. They do not have the enablers yet. They're not there with their Air Force yet. And their counter IED, we're still training them on that. So the high-end things they need to survive is where we're helping them. And like I said, intel collection, they're not very good at intel collection, so we're helping them there. So it's the high-end areas, and the CT is really growing. They really like their counterterrorist forces, so we're working extra hard with them. So that's where we're real thick on them, is in those areas, the Air Force, counterterrorists, and then working the staffs, and then the functional money, from the ministries all the way down to the corps. So, I mean, if you think about it, we didn't have enough troops to put on every corps. The Germans are on the corps in the north, the Italians are on the corps in the west. We're on only 2 of the 4 in the south and the east. So there's 2 where we have to fly in and check them, and then fly back to Kabul. We do this fly in, check on them, make sure they're okay, and then fly back to Kabul type of strategy that we're doing, because we don't have enough troops to put on all 6 of the corps. So that's really what we're trying to do here, is just make sure that they institutionally they can support and run their army and their police. That's really the focus.
How do we know we've hit that point? How do we know that the time we're spending there is of any value, that they're learning, that they're making any improvements?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what metrics they're using now, but we used to use the kinetic metrics, of course, how many attacks are, going on and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure what they're using right now. I just know if they're not getting paid, they'll vote with their feet, and then you'll have, when we go down and do their personnel checks, they'll have lots of troops not there. I'm sure it's indicators like that, but I'm not real sure the precise metrics they're using.
Does that kind of go back, when you talk about the group that we have in Iraq now, and on Monday, General Milley at the USA conference was pretty blunt about it. They weren't paid properly. There was reasons why what happened in Iraq happened. Is that kind of, in terms of the group that's in Iraq now, are they starting back at ground zero? Are they at a certain level now?
Yeah.
They can kind of pick up where it was left off?
Yeah, I don't have enough to give you any details, but just what I read, like what you read, I know. I read yesterday their posture to go back and take Ramadi. So, we're on bases in Iraq just like we are in Afghanistan, and we're building partner capacity. And in Iraq, for example, we're probably rebuilding it because we built it before. And it's really to assure them, hey, we're here, and I'm sure they like our air power. They have their own little air force, but it's nothing like ours. They don't have a lot of fast movers. It's mostly a helicopter-based counterinsurgency type of Air Force that we're building for them. But I think they do have some F-16s. I ain't real sure. What we've grown with the Iraqis.
Obama mentioned in his address that Afghanistan is still a very violent place.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of our troops are on the bases, but can you enumerate or be more specific about what sort of violence and sort of harm they may face?
Well, like right now, I have one of our battalions there, and they have a mission. I think what we call it Guardian Angels, and they do force protection for mostly the leadership of the Resolute Support headquarters. When I was there, we had 48 nations. I think we're down to 36. Now that support the NATO mission. But they're all over Kabul, and they're, moving these guys around and protecting them. And every time I see a car bomb or something like that from the Taliban that's really just trying to stir up, security concerns with the population, I'm always looking, you see the 10th Mountain Patches. I mean, we're all over the place. But I always worry about them. So that's one of them. It's the, they call them psychological. What's the word they use for the type of attacks they use? But it is sort of a psychological thing they do against the people, and it's usually complex attacks where they'll throw off a couple of car bombs and that. And the other threat that we have to kind of keep our eye on a lot is just they're still shooting rockets at us on our bases. And if you think about it, I mean, when as we thin and come back to the big bases, I mean it's the Afghans that are out in the countryside now that we have to tie in with. That are doing the security out in the countryside where these rockets shoot at us at. We do have the authorities to go after these rockets if we can pinpoint them. We can go off the base and eliminate the threat. But rockets and these bombs is really the threat to us because we're not out anymore running around with them getting hit with IEDs on all the roads and things like that. We're based completely on the base with them. The TACs, as we call them. We're on the same base as the Corps headquarters. And if we leave that base, we have to have, it has to go way up high for us to go off the base. So we seldom go off the bases. We're training them on their base, and they're the ones that go off the bases.
It seems like a lot of our success in Afghanistan comes from developing relationships between the Afghan military, the Afghan people. Do incidents like the bombing of the Kunduz hospital, Dr. Zabor's facility, does that affect our credibility? Does it affect our ability to have an authority to say we know what we're doing when we're out?
Yeah, it does. Of course it does. And anything and everything we do, it involves kinetics. If it isn't coordinated well, and there's an unfortunate loss of life. I mean, it's not good. The good thing about it right now is we got, like I said, we got a willing partner with President Ghani, and he, war is not perfect. It's not perfect. There's going to be mistakes and accidents, and I know there's an investigation going on, and we'll see how that goes. But it's never a pleasant thing when you have, any loss of life of civilians, and depends on what the investigation says, whether or not it comes after our credibility or not.
I was also a little curious about the role of women that women have taken now, and we're hearing a lot more about it, but I'm not necessarily sure that the change has been as great as what we're hearing about because they've been doing a lot of things without the acknowledgement, I guess, per se. Obviously, the idea of the selective service,
Right.
debate came up Monday from the secretary.
Yeah.
Where are we, I guess, in terms of, what are your thoughts on the role of women and then also with the selective service process?
Yeah, well, what they're doing now, just so you know, you saw what's going on in Ranger School. I think we had our third graduate. I think she's going to graduate. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, I think Friday's the graduation, so it's the third. But there's the whole 2020, the Army 2020 is our part of that for the DoD Women in the Service study, and all the secretaries have submitted their recommendations, and I don't know anything about what the recommendations are, but I will tell you that it's a very scientific analysis, and it's based upon it's based upon strictly the capabilities that we need in order to accomplish the wartime task. So And I'll tell you that, and that's the way they did it. The Marine Corps did it, the Army did it. It's, like I said, it's just to evaluate the standards for that job in order to accomplish that military task that you want, and that's the way they based it. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, everybody knows that the SecDef has a certain amount of time to see what he's going to do with it. I mean, and the same thing goes with the transgender, if that comes up next. I mean, it's the same thing. It's about, the policy is, right now we separate them, but it's a very outdated policy, so the SecDef says, hey, let's go study that, and we're doing the same thing with that. It's based upon standards to accomplish the task of the specific MOS against the wartime task that we're charged to do. And so like I said, it's a scientific evaluation how they're looking at it. And the Army, for example, I mean, we've opened up quite a few of these MOSs already, but I think there's 13 left, but they really are based upon, we call them the 11, the 13s, and the 19s. The 11 series are all infantry. We have 11 Bravo, which is an infantryman, and there's 11 Charlie, which are mortarmen, 11 Hotel, which are towmen. We shoot the tow missiles, but I think they've almost eliminated that. It's just 11 Bravo and 11 Charlie. Then you have the 13 series. All 13 series, that's the field artillery MOSs. They've all been opened up to the women minus the Fox, the 13 Fox, which is an FO, forward observer, that has to be out with the infantry. And that's the only one that hadn't been opened up. And then when you look at the 19s, that's all the tankers. You got scouts, you got normal guys that drive the tanks. So, all those equate to about 13 MOSs that are remaining that the Army hasn't opened up yet. And that's what this study's about, is those 13 on which ones to recommend opening up and which ones, to hold on. And so that's really kind of, all I can give you on that. All I know is all the services have given their recommendations to their secretaries, and they've turned them into the SecDef, and it's kind of in his court, and we'll see where it goes from there. You'll read about some of the different services having conversations about it.
Representative Todd mentioned, specifically with the selective service process, that she'd like to reach out to people like you and to people locally. I don't necessarily have an opinion on it, but what do you talk about in those situations, and what kind of ideas do you bounce back and forth, and what are you looking to hear when it comes to maybe a question like that? What was the topic again? About the pay? Women selective service. I believe Secretary McHugh mentioned it on Monday that at some point they're going to look into pay.
It would be like women in high school.
The selective service process.
Well, I mean, Secretary McHugh brought it up at the AUSA, I think is what you were talking about. But it's almost like, if we're going to look at the whole package, you have to look at the whole package. I mean, you can't just cherry pick, oh, I want this, but I don't want that. I think that was his only point, was, hey, it comes as a package deal, if we're going to do this. So, I mean, they could cut that out. I mean that was that's the first I'd heard of it, to be honest with you. And I was just like, wow, I guess he's right. That does come with the package. If you look at it, opening up the entire military to everyone, and that may not sit so well, with the population, So I don't know. I think they're going to have to study that one too. Don't you think? I mean, what?
I believe that's the overall.
But I'm like, whoa! I didn't see that chapter coming anywhere. He opened up. Oh, I guess he's right. It's a whole package. It's like a package deal.
I was talking with some JCC students about it. They saw the fairness of it. Whether they wanted to join the military was kind of a mixed bag. But
Right. Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I do have another.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that your challenge here was to determine, who gets to stay and who deploys. What other challenges are you facing now with people who are here, with soldiers who are here on base?
Yeah, like I said, the biggest challenge that I have is, when you look across the Army and you look at all the deployments of which units are going where, I mean, we call these things, prepare to deploy orders. You call, assigned mission orders. Assigned mission means you're deployed. You're on a mission that's assigned into somewhere, not on Fort Drum. We have lots of those, and we have to manage those. And then we also have, and you do that. And so the biggest thing I've had to do is balance the two. Because what you end up with, here's the struggle. You end up with brigade commanders that grew up as battalion commanders, and when they deployed, they took their entire unit. They left like 10% back, and all they did was look after families, their facilities, and the new soldiers that come in, they got them ready to go down range to be replacements, and that's in their mind. And when I first got here, I took the quarterly training briefs from them, And they were sort of still in that space. And I'm like, hey guys, guess what? 70% of your troops are home now. And you guys didn't talk a lot about that. So, you know, we kind of said this time we do these training briefs, you need to talk both of them. You got to talk your assigned mission, what you're doing to get ready for that. You have to talk about, hey, here's all the things we're doing at home. So you're having to kind of rebuild that into their DNA. It's never been in there. You got to say, hey guys, now it's more complicated to manage. You got to manage both. And so I said, the same rigor you put into the assigned mission that our nation has given us, you got to put into the soldiers that are back here, because we got to grow their capability as well. And so that is probably the largest challenge that, you know, I've had here as a commander, is to kind of reset all the leaders to do that. And we've been pushing it very hard, and it's sinking in. It's sinking in pretty well. We had a good set of quarterly training briefs that we just finished last week, a brigade at a time, and now everybody gets it. but our whole Army's kind of going through that. But we're hit pretty hard this cycle of deployment. So we probably have the preponderance of that type of mismatch, so to speak, to deal with than anyone else.
Does it create a challenge for motivation, like you?
Oh, the have and have
These
nots?
guys have been, you know, they're
Yeah.
going out, they're going on
Yeah.
the mission. Now they have to, now they're back here at home, they're having, you know, their job is to build these new skills to kind of.
Yeah. I tell you, the ones that doesn't have patches on, I mean, they want to go. I mean, they truly do. But I will tell you, there's parts and pieces of the Army that have been so many times, they're like, they welcome to stay home. I mean, they've been deployed so many times. So it just depends on how you're looking at it. The new troops, first timers, I mean, they want to get after it. They want to get a combat patch on, and, you know, be like Mike, you know. But we got some that are like, hey, you know, I just soon sit this one out. You know, they don't have any problem with it because they've been so many times. You know, lots of deployments.
And just, can you explain in layman terms the difference between decisive action and counterinsurgency?
Yeah, decisive action, for example, you know, when I say there's like the big 5 tasks that a brigade does, you know, first one is attack. You know, it means they have to attack another enemy formation and employ everything they own, to include air power and everything, and mask the effects of it against the enemy. Real high end, because it's very complicated, you have to synchronize, and you got a large formation to kind of get after it. And they do that at the company level, they do it at the battalion, and then at the brigade level, they have to do that task. And even at the squad level, attack. So everybody's got to be able to attack and mass everything they own to include what we give them through the air on that one task. Counterinsurgency, it's it's like watching water boil. It's slower. You got to go in and you got to win hearts and minds. You teach another army how to patrol, how to shoot their weapons. I mean, it's more of a trainer, you know, type of thing. You can do kinetics against the enemy, but it's mostly, you know, small. You got to go to this house, capture this one guy with a small formation. There's never a large formation kind of in counterinsurgency. It's very small and nuanced type of missions that you do. But you train a lot in counterinsurgency, and you go after insurgents. But it's usually small insurgents. You never have to go in and do a big mass attack. So decisive action is against a horde. Like, you know, if we're training against decisive action, it's against a threat that's large as us or larger. Like, you know, you think China, you think Russia, you think parts of Syria, Iran. You're looking at, you know, a big aggressor. So if they throw something big and heavy at us, you know, we have the capability to apply something back at them of equal and be very good at it. And we, you know, because of the COIN environment, we've been focused really down to small unit level. And you think about it, 12 years, constant deployments over and over. I mean, it's just burned into our DNA. We weren't doing any of that large type formation, combined arms training to get after larger fights against an adversary that's either a peer or just under us, under a peer capability of us. It makes sense. So it's more larger. Yeah.
Is that happening? Is that transition kind of happening now, or is that what we're going to be going towards?
No, it's happening now.
Okay. So is what First Brigade's doing, what Second Brigade's doing, it's kind of a lot of the same thing. I mean, other than
It's mostly counterinsurgency, what they're doing downrange. But back here, we've set their formations up, we've set their training plans up, so they, at the end of each quarter, they can say, hey, at the end of this quarter, we're going to have lethal squads. I mean, squad attacks. I mean, they're going to be able to do it very well. Next quarter will be platoons. They probably won't get much higher than that until the leadership gets on, and then they'll be getting after company. battalion. But you got to start it down low, and it's a building block, you know, kind of a thing for everything that they do for their loved ones, and I thank the community for, you know, all of the things that they do, because we're interdependent upon them. Everything they do for our soldiers and our families here, and that's kind of been my takeaway. I appreciate everything they've done for us. Continue to support us while we're deployed. Okay.
Thank you. Judge, what is the number that is going along with you?
What do you mean the number?
As you
Yeah, I
deploy?
probably shouldn't have used any number, should I?
Yeah, from head.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have used any number, should I?
You can use
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little over 200. Yeah. You know, 609-man headquarters, so it kind of gives you I'd almost use the word a third, you know, kind of a number, a third of the headquarters. And, you know, same with the brigades, it's actually less than a third. You know, it's like I said, a 70-30 mix. Leadership 70, but, you know, I would say it's probably, you know, 25 to 30% of a brigade's deploying. That's about it. If you use percentage, they'll keep me out of trouble. I'm not supposed to be giving away OPSEC, you know.
And the secret password for the secret headquarters